The rain pelted my back as I hurriedly walked up to my school. Thunder clapped in the distance as I finally walked into the vestibule with the lights flickering. Chatter filled the halls as I made my way towards my locker. My name is Jackson. I'm a sophomore at Ridgewood High School. My school isn't huge, but it isn't small either. Everyone knows each other, but we're not all friends, if that makes any sense. I noticed a short girl at the locker next to mine. That locker had always been empty. A new student, perhaps? Or did someone's locker get switched? As I got closer, I realized that I have never seen this girl before. She was short and thin, with long tangled hair cascading down her back. She wore a chestnut brown oversized hoodie, black leggings, and black boots. Hi, are you new here? I don't think we've met before, I said with a smile. Yeah, my name is Beverly, she said while trying to open her locker. Her fingernails caked in dirt had caught my attention, but I kept my thoughts to myself as I knew better than to comment on looks. Do you know where room 203 is? She asked. Yes, actually, that's where I was about to head. Biology, first period with Mr. Grant. She nodded her head slowly. I took a better look at her. Her face was fully covered in makeup. Her hazel eyes had a yellowish tint to them, and her lips were extremely chapped. Perhaps she comes from a poor family. I showed her the way to our first class of the day, and we discussed her schedule, which, to my amazement, was very similar to mine. As we took our seats, class began at the sound of the bell. Almost halfway through the period, I had noticed something. Beverly seemed to have not been acknowledged by anyone but me this entire time. Even the teachers had not seemed to notice her existence. Maybe I was just looking into it too deeply, but something felt off. Must be the weather, I suppose. Beverly and I shared the same lunch period, so I offered to sit with her at lunch, to which she accepted. I wasn't popular at school, but I wasn't a nobody either. I knew people and people knew me. I didn't really have friends, as the ones I did have either had different lunch periods or weren't in school today. If you don't mind me asking, where do you live? I asked as I took a bite of my ham sandwich. She took a second to respond, but eventually replied, I live at the corner of Maple and Greenstone. I tried to think of that area, but I wasn't too familiar with streets north of the school. We had a project for English and we had decided to be partners. Did you want to come to my place to work on the project after school? I live right down the road. I can't, she said quickly and looked away. Could we go to a park, maybe? Her response confused me, but I agreed, and our plans were made. The bell rang at 2 o'clock, and she followed me outdoors into the drizzling rain. Are you sure you don't want to come to my place? Or even go to your place? It's a bit wet outside, I asked. No, we agreed on the park, Beverly said firmly. For winter in New York, the weather was fairly comfortable, at 45 Fahrenheit. The park benches squeaked as we both sat down. I put down my sweatshirt on top of the table to prevent our papers from getting wet. I looked over to Beverly and saw her covering up her face with even more makeup. You know, you don't need that much makeup, I joked. She stared at me with narrowed eyes and continued applying a skin-colored liquid to her face. Eventually, we got to work on our project. It consisted of me doing all the work, while she fidgeted and stared off into space. It didn't bother me much, because I was used to always doing all the work for group projects, but I was hoping to get to know more about her. Before I knew it, the little bit of sun that was out had set, leaving us, or rather myself, working under the light of a dim streetlight. I think this is good for today, I said, while packing my notebooks into my backpack. She nodded her head and picked up her worn-out backpack. It caught my attention that she didn't have any books or anything in her bag at all. I get it. First day at a new school and all, but she didn't eat or drink anything while with me the majority of the day either. I can walk you home if you like. I smiled. No, you can't, she said with a stern look on her face. Are you sure? It's dark out and I want to make sure you get home okay. No, I'll walk home by myself. I assumed she was being safe, considering she barely knew me and just met me today. Fair enough, I suppose. I'm practically a stranger to her. We said our goodbyes and headed in opposite directions. As I began walking, curiosity had gotten the best of me. I wanted to know where she lived, but also wanted to make sure she got home safe, since there has been an increase in crime in the area lately. I kept my distance from her and followed her for about 15 minutes, taking multiple turns through an area I was completely unfamiliar with. I checked my phone and, luckily, I had enough battery to use the map app to find my way home. Wait, Beverly didn't use her phone today. I never saw her with one, and it didn't seem like she brought it with her. Maybe her family couldn't afford one. Still, even now in 2021, it was odd for one to not have some type of smartphone. Maybe I just never saw her use it. Beverly started running, and that caught my attention. I picked up the pace whilst also keeping my footsteps light so she wouldn't hear me. She slowed down under a street lamp and looked around her with watchful eyes. I ducked behind a tree so she wouldn't catch me. I took this time to take in the area around me. Right in front of where she stood was a cemetery I had never seen in my 16 years of life. She quickly hopped the fence and made her way down the dirt path. I followed her, being sure to avoid sticks and puddles that may make a sound. I had accidentally lost track of her in the darkness. Surprisingly, there were no lights in the cemetery at all, which made it even more spooky. Just then, I saw a figure kneeling down in front of a grave, digging in the dirt. What the f... I whispered to myself. As I got closer, the figure was no longer there. Was my mind playing tricks on me? Where had Beverly gone? I was curious as to what that figure was doing in front of that grave. So, I slowly made my way towards it. It was a fairly normal grave. Mother Nature had weathered down the gravestone a bit, and vines cuddled it. The dirt appeared completely untouched, which had made me feel even more uneasy than I already was. My heart nearly stopped as I read the name engraved into the stone. Our beloved daughter, Beverly M. Keating, 2005 to 2021. You are always in our hearts and thoughts. You were taken from us far too soon. We love you always. I took a step back, almost tripping on a gravestone behind me. My eyes caught a glimpse of a picture frame nestled in the dirt in front of the grave. It was a picture of an older man, woman, a young girl and a baby boy. The young girl looked like a younger version of Beverly. I couldn't believe what I was seeing right now. This must be a dream. Beverly spent almost the whole day with me. She talked to me. Beverly? I called out into the night. Only the crickets and whistling of the wind responded. The air got even colder, so I turned to head home. Just as I turned around, a faint whisper came from behind me. I told you to not take me home.
Hello listeners, if you enjoyed this story, please check out the author in the description. For more content, leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more sinister readings.